Welcome to Fake Friends MMA. We're not here for a good time, we're here for a long time. And we want to talk about one of our friends, a mutual friend of ours, Francis Ngannou. We had his coach onto our show. I don't think he was ready for a 45-minute interview, but we did it. We had a lot of questions for him, and especially about this fight against Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou. Francis, on his YouTube channel, he came out and he said, Israel Adesanya is a better version of Ciryl Gane. Now, this was in reference to training, right? So Francis was like, okay, I really wanted Israel Adesanya to come over and train with me. Now, at first, when he first said that, I was thinking more of along the lines of like, okay, he's continuing this whole Three Kings storyline where he's talking about how these three African descendants are champions in the UFC and they're sticking together and they're brothers and whatnot. But then he continued on saying that Israel Adesanya is a better version of Ciryl Gane. Now that took me aback for a second. Now I know Ciryl Gane has a kickboxing background. Israel Adesanya has a kickboxing background. I know Ciryl Gane does not get hit very often. I know Israel Adesanya doesn't get hit very often. Neither one have a wrestling base that they really rely on. It's more of like a defensive measure. But I wanted to look more into what he was talking about. Was this just a gamemanship thing? Was this just for a soundbite to get into Ciryl Gane's head, or just add to the narrative of Ciryl Gane is not that great? Is it a response to all the talk about this sparring footage, which we'll talk about in another video, about how the sparring footage was doctored and it was cut out and whatnot. But I wanted to look at, are these guys really the same? Like, are they really comparable? I know that one fights at 185, toyed with 205, went and fought for the title, but did not win. Ciryl Gane is at the heavyweight division, and they both have the similar style, but who really does better in their circumstance? So if I take a look at my handy dandy laptop, if you look at the numbers, Ciryl Gane versus Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya lands almost 4 significant strikes per minute and absorbs almost 2.6, so it's 2.59. Ciryl Gane, on the other hand, lands 5.37 and absorbs 2.4. Now, just looking at those numbers without adding any asterisks, it looks like Ciryl Gane actually hits his opponent a lot more per minute, but also gets hit less. What do these numbers mean? Does this mean that automatically Israel Adesanya is not as great as Ciryl Gane? Or the inverse? Well, you have to take a couple things into account, right? Israel Adesanya has fought a lot more 5-round fights compared to Ciryl Gane. Israel Adesanya doesn't fight against guys in the heavyweight division who tend to get hit a lot more often. But there's also something that's very interesting. One stat. Israel Adesanya averages more knockdowns per minute than Ciryl Gane. And that's kind of a weird paradox. That's like a duality right there. Is a guy that's at the heavyweight division that's known for all these knockdowns and knockouts is knocking down his opponents less. Now, I would say you could talk about the 5-round fights again where Israel Adesanya is doing a lot more, so he has a lot more opportunity because he's in the cage longer. But at the same time, if you look at Israel Adesanya's fights, he's beating these guys before the 4th and 5th round. Or at least he's knocking them down multiple times before the 3rd and 4th round, or 4th and 5th round. Now, I want to get your guys' take. Let me know. Do you actually think like Francis Ngannou is legitimately saying Israel Adesanya is a better version than Ciryl Gane? Now, resume standpoint, Israel Adesanya's resume is better than Ciryl Gane's. That's objectively speaking. Ciryl Gane has not been in the MMA world long enough to even contend with what Israel Adesanya has accomplished. But do you actually think Israel Adesanya is a better version than Ciryl? Ciryl implements a lot more takedowns. He's never been taken down before. He does a lot more in the clinch than Israel Adesanya does. But does that really mean that he's better? Or does that give him an edge over Israel? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below.